Hi, I'm Christine, your relationship and mindset mastery doctor and your leverage for change. Today I'm going to be speaking about attachment styles, and I'm going to go back to the basics of what attachment styles really are and how they really impact everyone. Every individual is impacted by their attachment styles. And the attachment style, guys, is formed when we were children. As human beings, we are wired to attach to our caregivers because as babies, we need our caregivers to take care of us for us to survive, right? We can't do anything for ourselves. We depend on our caregivers to really take care of us and to help us to grow into healthy human beings. Now, this does not always happen, and so I'm going to kind of go over the basics of how these attachment styles are formed and the caregivers who dictate how a child is going to react and interact with their world as they grow older. Now, sadly, a lot of us, and I believe that, doing a parental class would be so valuable for so many people because as we really don't have anything, we didn't learn how to be parents. We we get into a relationship, we have babies, and then we try and figure it out. And that is really not fair to, it's not fair to our children that grow up with these different, these attachment styles. That's going to hinder them as they grow older to, and how they interact and how they impact other people's lives as they navigate the world. So every single attachment style, guys, is the way that our belief system is formed from that attachment style, because it's how we interact with our parents and caregivers and people, those close to us in our families, that dictate how we see the world from that moment on, from we're children. And so we carry these belief systems into our adult lives, and then we see things and understand challenges, and we understand everything through those lenses, right? So it's very important for us to really know about attachment styles and how it will impact everything from our careers, how we're able to achieve our goals in life, our self-confidence, our self-worth, and all of these dictate how we interact in relationships, in our adult relationships as well. A lot of individuals will say that, you'll hear people complain about different situations in their relationships. And a lot of people don't realize that it is how it is coming from when they were babies. It's the way that they were attached in these their formative years to their caregivers that is going to dictate, and that is dictating how they now react to other people close to them, especially when it comes to somebody close, your partner in a romantic relationship. So it's very important to discuss and understand what this attachment style is all about. So basically there are like about 4 attachment styles, and the one that we all want to be is secure, right? When a child grows up with a secure attachment, they were confident. As children, they were confident that their caregivers was going to be there for them when they needed them, to take care of them. Not that the caregiver is going to be there every time they open their mouth and cry. As soon as they do, they run there. No, that's not necessary. But the child innately knows, because of previous experience, that when they cried and they were hungry, or they wanted to sleep, or whatever it is that their needs were, the parent or the caregiver, whoever that was, would be there to provide that for them. And they had that confidence in being taken care of. So these secure children would be able to go and separate from their caregivers for short periods of time and not worry about them coming back, because they from previous experience knew that when they left, they would come back. They would always be there for them. And if they needed them, they just had to cry or do whatever it is to elicit that kind of a help. So now these secure attached style kids will grow up into secure adults, right? And these secure adults are the ones that a lot of people in relationship will call boring because they are so stable. You know, they're stable and they're stable and they can be counted on to do what is right and to be there for their partner. And especially with the other types of attachment styles, they have been used to a lot of turmoil and conflict and stuff, and say they grew up believing that that is normal. Anyway, so the secure attachment is really what we are all going for, right? It's a attachment style that most of us would want to have. The next one is the anxious preoccupied, which is another style that this child, their problem was that they didn't have the confidence that their parent was going to be there for them when they needed them. So when their parent, they had a difficult time separating when they're, from their parent. So if they see, they're always watching their parent. In any kind of a study, or if you were to observe a child that is anxious, you will see that when the parent is going away from them, their eyes are following them all the time because they're making sure that they don't go too far, because they don't trust that if they leave that they will come back to them, right? Now these children, when they're separated, say for example the parent does leave, when they're separated from the parent, they get very anxious. They are, they're like really anxious and worried about, is my parent, they think this is the way they behave, I don't know if my parent is going to come back, and so when that parent comes back, they latch on for dear life. They don't want to let them go, so they will hang on to them and not let them go. And now guys, that kind of behavior and that kind of attachment style, the lack of confidence, the fear of abandonment in a relationship, that is a primary fear for the person or the child that becomes anxiously attached to their parent, their caregiver. They fear abandonment and they become very clingy. As I said, when they leave, they come back, they just hang on to them for dear life, and very needy because they're not secure in the thought that, and have the confidence that their parent will be there for them when they need them. They feel that they're not loved enough, and the parent could leave at any time. And so it also translates later on in their adult relationships, because they fear abandonment in their intimate relationships, and they will cling to that partner and always want to know where that partner is. And if that partner does not respond to a text, they get very anxious because they're wondering, is this partner leaving me? Maybe they don't love me. So the next one is the avoidant. And the avoidant is, there are two different avoidance styles of attachment, and this is the dismissive avoidance style. And this child, as children, for example, let me get my notes. The avoidant child learned not to depend on the caregiver to get their needs met, and so they stop trying. And they find other ways to get their needs met. So if they were depending on their caregiver to soothe them because they were anxious about something, they're going to find a way to soothe themselves. And it could be sucking of the thumb. It could be you just rocking back and forth to soothe themselves. It could be as babies. Now, as they get older, they find different ways. It could be gaming. But guys, it's important to note that the dismissive avoidant gets very used to being alone and soothing themselves. So as they grow older, they like that space, because their belief is that whenever they go towards a parent or a caregiver for to kind of feel loved or needed or wanted or taken care of, the caregiver was never there. So they associated any kind of a close emotional attachment to pain. And so they will avoid it at all cost. Now, the funny thing is that they also need, because it's a human thing for you to need companionship and that kind of a closeness to another individual, right? So they will seek it out. But once they get it, and once they are in that relationship, if it gets too emotionally intense, like they're really getting along and everything is feeling so close and emotionally tight, they will require space. They need their space because they fear emotional closeness, because they don't trust that it will last. And so they will leave and they will go and soothe themselves in ways that they trust, and that way is going to be without any kind of emotional connection. So they can have little they can play games all day, because gaming does not require any kind of emotional connection. They can watch porn all day, because watching porn does not connect you to the person. It really is just something to get to feel good at that time and to get whatever it is that they need satisfied. They may go, I'm trying to say is that they find something that does not require emotional connection to soothe themselves when they're away or or on their own. Or they may have multiple women. And the reason I say multiple is important is that with multiple women, you don't have to really connect to them emotionally. So, maybe prostitutes or women you don't have to be around all the time. They're living in different states, very far away, so you have the excuse that you're too far to get to where they are. So they will have relationships, men or women, but usually men are more geared towards this kind of a thing, when it comes to multiple women in different states. So you'll have one in the state and you can go and visit when you feel like it or when you want to see them, but you don't have to be around. So you don't need to form an emotional connection with them and be there in that soup of emotional connection all the time. So these are the things that someone with a dismissive avoidant style will show. These are the characteristics that they will show. As children, they will just stop seeking comfort from their caregivers because they just never got it, and they couldn't depend on their caregivers to be there for them when they needed them. As adults, they find it very difficult in expressing their emotions to, even in a social group, guys. When you speak to someone with a dismissive, avoidant personality, what happens is that if you ask them something that requires an emotional response, they will be more logical. So they will speak in terms of logic versus emotion. And so they're not going to say, I was feeling really happy. They may say, they may say, well, that is something that is conducive to being satisfied, but they're not going to be all emotional. I feel so happy. I almost cried. You won't hear that, right? Not with someone who's a dismissive avoidant. They find it very hard to express emotions, and they find it very hard to be in any kind of emotional intensity. Anything that requires emotional intensity, like if you are going to be discussing something that is going to require some kind of a really vulnerability, they will run away from that. They also don't show any particular preference for those close to them, for example, their families versus their friends. They're pretty much on the same kind of a level. Friends and family and social people, work people, everybody is kind of like on the same thing, because they did not form that bond with their caregivers. Now, the fearful avoidant, which is the other avoidant. They also call it a disorganized type of attachment. As children, they were forced to take on. There was a lot in the home. There was a lot of emotional, physical, sexual. It could be all of those, or it could be one or both or two of those. There's usually abuse, right? And in the home, and it's a toxic kind of soup that they're living in, right? And so they find themselves many times being parentified, and that means because, say for example, their parents are quarreling, right? And the mom, which is the usual person who will come to them almost for them to ease their pain. Sometimes when they have, so they'll hug them and cry on them and use them almost like a, let out emotional thing that they use, which is very thin because this child don't know what's going on, and all they know is that this person is crying and they can't help them, and so they're caught in this double bind of, I want to help them but I don't know how to help them, and they're crying and I don't know, you know what I'm saying? So as they grow older, they find themselves acting in a caregiver role and taking care of their mom. And if the father is, if it's a dad and who's a drug addict, maybe the dad come and pass out on the sofa or throw up and do and not eating, or eat and throw the food up. And so they end up taking care and cleaning up and cooking and doing all that kind of stuff from a young age. And so as they grow older, they yearn that connection. They need that connection from their parents. So they look for relationships, but when they get into relationships, they pull away because they fear those relationships as well, because they feel that they also the disorganized attachment, the reason why it's called disorganized is because really they kind of embody both the anxious style as well as the dismissive side, right? Because the anxious, they want that love and connection, and the dismissive side, relationships are painful, so I'm going to stay away. I can't get emotionally connected. So you can imagine the kind of mess and confusion in that person, right? And guys, I'm saying this so that you're aware of the styles, but it's not a life sentence. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be easy for you to change these styles, but it is possible, and it takes a lot of work on your end. Nobody can fix you. You have to fix yourself, and that is going to require that you change all these, go back into where these things came from, and work to resolve those, to rewrite those limiting beliefs, to rewrite those patterns of thinking, those patterns of behaviors. And it's going to be difficult, but I believe that it's worth it, because then right now you're probably someone who cannot maintain relationships, and you don't know how to maintain it. You just don't know how, because you never learned. And so you have to now relearn all of those things, guys, and be able to have embrace support from others to help you to do those. So this video is getting a little long, so I am going to cut this off before it gets too long, and I am going to ask you please to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and please guys comment below and ask any questions you may wish, and I'll try my best to really answer as much of your questions as possible. And please just take care of yourselves, because you can change. This is no fault of your own. It was something that happened. We can't change our past. We can only change where we're at right now. So guys, this is Christine, your relationship and mindset master doctor, and your leverage for change. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.